I'm glad to have you join us again on the program from the National Assembly. I am Ignatius Nkwo. Well, any moment from now, members of the House of Representatives will reconvene for Thursday's plenary. And from the order paper of the day, the House has scheduled 3 bills and 1 motion for consideration. Well, the whole of these 3 bills will be coming for second reading. One of them is a bill that seeks to repeal the National Housing Fund. And we still have a bill that tries to enhance accountability and transparency in the management of tax incentives in Nigeria. But you know, in our tradition, we'll always bring to you the chairman of House Committee on Rules and Business, who will always tell us more on what Nigerians should expect by the time the House reconvenes. I will say, welcome back from your annual recess.
Thanks very much and good morning.
All right, now back to business. Yeah. What are we expecting, apart from the ones I've said, are there other things we expect by the time the House reconvenes this morning?
Actually, there are 27 bills that have been introduced for first reading today. 27 new bills for first reading. Among them is the Federal Capital Territory Appropriation Bill. You know, is the National Assembly that acts like the State Assembly of the FCT. So their bill is coming up for first reading today. There's also a bill that has been passed in the Senate and is introduced today for first reading, the Whistleblowers Protection Bill. You know, everybody is talking about whistleblowing today, and so there is a law to back it up. It's also coming up amongst several others, like I said, 27. You already mentioned the bill that seeks to repeal the National Housing Fund Act, and in its place, reenact the National Housing Fund and related matters bill. It's a bill that is also coming up for second reading. Like I always explain, second reading is when the merits and demerits of any bill are debated on the floor. If at the end of that debate, the vote is put and members say that no, we don't want that bill, that is the end of the bill. But if the yes have the majority votes, then is given to a standing committee of the House to take a look at it. So you already mentioned another one, a bill to amend the Tertiary Education Trust Fund. You know, so it's also coming up for second reading. We have only one motion today, and the motion is to ensure that chemicals that have been declared hazardous in soap making in Europe and America do not end up in our shores. You know, Nigeria is sometimes taken as a dumping ground. And so if we don't come up with measures to prevent that, you will have a situation where they end up in Nigeria and people's health is compromised. So that is that. I always mention that even without anything appearing on the order paper, a member could spring up and raise a matter of urgent public importance, and it will be debated if the House so agrees. So those are these. You have several items that will come up for consideration. Consideration is about you know, taking a closer look at all the items that the committees have brought forward. So we have about 4 items to be considered in the committee of the whole. So in a nutshell, those are the items that the Nigerian public should expect the House to take a look at today.
All right. But then I think Nigerians would want to know, like the House has constituted an ad hoc committee on political agitations in the country. What basically is the focus of that ad hoc committee?
Well, you know that while we were on break, just before we went on break, we voted on some items in the constitutional amendment. And one of the items that was voted down is devolution of powers. From the debate that has been going on, Nigerians, a segment of Nigerians appear to be very disappointed the way the voting went. And so since we are representatives of the people, we decided to take a second look at it, and the leadership say, okay, here is a committee made up of the leadership of the House, the entire leadership of the House except the Speaker, is headed by the Deputy Chair, Deputy Speaker. And one member from each geopolitical zone, yours sincerely, is the one representing North Central in that committee. So it's to collect the views of Nigerians and see whether we can bring it back and take a second look at it in the constitutional amendment process. We have not, to the best of my knowledge, the items have not yet been sent over to the Houses of Assembly. But even if they are, this, I mean, we can still do it, you know, because it doesn't have to be done at once. We can still do another segment of the constitutional amendment. So in a nutshell, that is what that committee intends to look at.
All right. Thank you very much again for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we still have one of the sponsors of the 3 bills that will be coming up today. He is Representative Ahmed Baba Keita. He is the member that is sponsoring the bill to repeal the National Housing Fund. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, what actually are we expecting on the content of this, your bill?
Simple. It's the desire of the federal government, the present APC government, to provide more houses for Nigerians. And successive regimes, both military and civilian, have tried in so many ways to see how best and how better they can provide housing for Nigeria, but they have failed. Reason being that there are fundamental problems embedded in the act. So the idea of reintroducing this bill is to repeal it and reenact another National Housing Fund Act so as to free the organization to be able to have other alternative sources of funding to be able to meet with the present aspiration of having more houses for Nigerians. This is basically the crux of the repeal. We want to repeal because without the repeals, we cannot have more sources of funding. And with the current stand of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, it can only provide a very little housing. And we are already behind. We have housing deficit in Nigeria, which has been established. Some will say 8 million houses, some more than. So this bill seeks to repeal the existing law to bring them in conformity with modern day requirement of this.
All right, but why is it that you didn't think about going for amendment of the already existing law on housing? You decided to go for a total repeal.
Yeah, because if we were to amend it, amendment will keep coming. You understand? Even though why we would decide to repeal this one is because of the fundamentals of the bill. Or every bill, the idea of any law is to give teeth to the organization to be able to perform to the expectation of Nigerians. And unfortunately, the housing bill has failed to do so. So that's why we decided to go for repeal. And it is in line with the aspiration of the 8th Assembly to take all those major problems, taking the bull by the horns, to be able to free this. So it is the desire of the 8th Assembly to touch on those aspects of life, items that touch or have direct bearing on the society.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
You're most welcome.
Right. Well, as it is so far, members are yet to reconvene for today's plenary. Because of that, we'll bring to you a package on the House previous plenary sitting. But as soon as the House commence sitting, we'll bring you straight live brokers of today's plenary session.
Responsibility Act by the National Assembly to give effect to the proposed promissory note and bond issuance program. I forward herewith for your kind consideration and passage into law the Fiscal Responsibility Amendment Bill 2017. The proposed amendment is necessitated by the need to commence the program of promissory note and bond issues to provide a final solution to the long-standing issue of outstanding obligations of the government that have been quantified at a gross amount of 2.7 trillion naira. This program has become important in view of the seriousness of the accumulation of these obligations, which are inimical to government plans to revive the economy through the provision of improved and modernized infrastructure, and at human capital level, the issue of pension and promotional arrears, which go back as far as 2012, in causing untold hardship among those who have served. It also adversely affects the morale of those currently in service and on whom we depend to implement government programs. However, as you are no doubt aware, pension and salary arrears are recurrent expenditure. The Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 clearly stipulates in Section 41, subsection 1A and 42, subsection 2B, that the proceeds of borrowing by government shall be applied solely towards capital expenditure. In this regard, I request that the National Assembly approves the proposed amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act to provide legal backing for the use of the mentioned instruments in the satisfaction of the accumulated obligations. I look forward to an expedited treatment of this request by the honorable members of the House of Representatives and attach the draft bill for your consideration. Please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest regards. Sincerely, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, then Acting President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This letter was dated 4th of August 2017. Wish to notify honorable members of the House of Representatives, pursuant to Section 68, subsection 1B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, that the seat of Kware, Wamako Federal Constituency of Sokoto State, has become vacant. This vacancy is as a result of his death on 14th July 2017, which was announced in the House plenary on 18th July 2017. I was a member of the All Progressives Congress, APC. This notification is in fulfillment of Section 68(2) of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and for records purposes. So any member who has a petition to present may please rise to do so. For my welcome speech, I most warmly welcome us back from the annual recess. I trust that you had some rest, even as you used the opportunity to interact with your constituents. Acknowledge that the socio-political environment in the country since we adjourned for the recess was not such as to give one the desired true rest. Indeed, we were on edge at the point to breach the recess and summon an emergency resumption of plenary. But thanks to Almighty God for calming the storms, I believe we all appreciate the times and thus the need for us to hit the ground running, given the fact that there are many pending legislative measures requiring urgent attention. Honorable colleagues, permit me to commend you all, my dear colleagues, for the informed restraint, maturity, and patriotism in responding to the various incidences of unease that occasioned during the period of the recess. This is in line with the oath we all took to uphold and defend the Constitution, and I do not take it for granted. Indeed, I make bold to say that these recent developments are a pointer to the reality that constitutional amendment remains an unfinished business, demanding our expeditious attention. I'm confident we are well able to do the needful. Several important developments took place while we were on recess. Most importantly, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, returned from his medical vacation, has since transmitted his letter of resumption as required by the Constitution. We thank God for his safe return and pray God to perfect his healing and grant him good health and the strength to continue to pilot the affairs of state successfully. During this period, we got the good news from the National Bureau of Statistics that the Nigerian economy had exited from recession. We must caution, however, that the implementation of policies and hard work necessary to sustain a sound and productive economy, which the National Assembly highlighted in the resolution sent to the President earlier, should be continued with even greater vigor to ensure that our people enjoy the positive impact of the exit. We shall, in this respect, make our oversight of the executive branch most robust, effective, and informed. May I use this opportunity to commiserate with families of Nigerians who lost their lives in various incidents across the country. In particular, deaths that arose as a result of floods that ravaged Benue, Kano, Sokoto, and some other states, and deaths rising from crisis in some parts of the country. We are all aware that during the recess, the agitation by a group of persons based in the southeastern geopolitical zone of the country and the heightened call by many groups for restructuring of the country dominated discourse in Nigeria. It is in this regard that I wish to commend our religious leaders, traditional rulers, leaders of various ethnic nationalities, elder statesmen, security agencies, the governors, and indeed governments of states in the Federation for their display of statesmanship during this period. Indeed, all patriotic Nigerians rose in unison to uphold the fundamental rights of all citizens to move freely and reside in any part of the Federation as they choose without let or hindrance. It appears to me that the citizens of this great country have sounded the message loud and clear that they stand for a united, prosperous, and a just Nigeria. It is necessary, however, to emphasize that Nigeria is a constitutional democracy with a clear legal framework for resolving differences that normally arise among citizens, between citizens and government, as well as between the structures and arms of government. Make no mistake, as representative of the people, we have a duty to champion the protection and preservation of the rights of our constituents and peoples. We are very conscious and indeed jealous of the fundamental rights provided under our Constitution, as well as the human and people's rights under the African Charter. As an institution, this House stands firmly on the side of those who seek equity, fairness, and justice, so long as such is pursued in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which we, as honorable members, have sworn to protect and preserve. Anyone or group who assaults our Constitution will not find a partner here, because our oath of office repels it. But those who stand for justice, fairness, and equity will have partners in us, because our oath of office compels it. We will work shoulder to shoulder with all those working within the ambit of the Constitution and the law for all Nigerians, regardless of creed or ethnicity, to be first-class citizens, as no nation can truly be first-class if it harbors within its borders second or third-class citizens. Do we have a legislative response to the issues that have been thrown up? Is the National Assembly involved in the debate? Can restructuring take place outside the existing legal order? Indeed, all the arguments about restructuring are, at the end of the day, legislative issues. It may be necessary in due course for the National Assembly to have a second look at the issues that have been thrown up. The National Assembly, as a representative and product of the people, cannot act contrary to the wishes and aspirations of its constituents. We need to sift all the noise and find out what exactly the majority of our people actually want. This is a responsibility we cannot outsource. Going forward, it is my view that we need to revisit some aspect of the voting on constitutional alteration. Locally, we still have the legislative window of conferencing with the Senate, where we have differences. The other issue that should attract the attention of this honorable House is the spate of strikes by various workers' unions that engulfed the country in recent weeks. One common denominator is that all the strikes were premised on matters over which the unions have previously discussed with government and on which deliberations were either inconclusive or which resolutions reached were observed in breach. I commend the executive and labor unions for reaching an understanding, and for labor in particular, for employing lawful processes in pursuing their demands, and the suspension of the strikes in order to give another chance for negotiations. I wish to direct all House committees with oversight responsibility for the agencies involved in these negotiations to urgently take appropriate legislative steps to aid full, final, and permanent resolution of the issues for the sake of industrial peace and harmony in the country. Honorable members are also aware that the media has been awash with scathing criticism of the institution of the House of Representatives over the NGO regulation bill, which has passed second reading and is at committee stage. Public criticism of the content of the bill is a welcome development, and there are many who are doing just that. Indeed, it is the reason why every bill is subjected to public hearing so that the inputs of stakeholders can be obtained to ensure public buy-in. I hasten to say that all Nigerians and other corporate persons, including non-Nigerians, are stakeholders and have the right to support or oppose a bill. However, when opinions are targeted at proceedings of Wednesday, 27 September 2017, proceed to take announcements. First is announcement on constituency verification exercise by National Assembly internal audit. In line with the provisions of the Financial Regulations, Chapter 17, the staff of internal audit of National Assembly will be embarking on verification exercise of federal constituency officers across the nation from Wednesday, 4th October 2017. During the visit, which will take place simultaneously in all the zones of the Federation, the audit staff will focus, among others, on location of the constituency office, staffing and staff records, office equipments, if any other administrative matters. Honorable members are expected to make arrangements for the exercise. In case of any inquiry, please contact Kabiru Yusuf or Kabiru Yakubu, Director, Internal Audit Department, on 080988.
The floor of the House of Representatives.
House of Representatives. House of Representatives,
Parliament channel on channel 306 Titan Bouquet.
Nigeria, scheduled to hold as follows. Date, Tuesday 3rd to Thursday 5th October 2017. Time 9 a.m. Venue, International Conference Center, Abuja. Announcer, Honorable Obinna Chidoka, Chairman, House Committee on Environment and Habitat. Announcement, the Governor of Imo State, His Excellency Owelu Roches Okorocha, wishes to invite members to the following activities marking his 55th birthday. Thursday, 28 September, which was yesterday, 2017, Thanksgiving service. Friday, Thursday is today. Thursday, 28 September, 2017. Thanksgiving service, Friday, 29 September 2017. 10th graduation ceremony of the Roches Foundation College. Saturday, 30th September 2017, book launch in his honor. A formal invitation has been sent through caucus leaders earlier. Members interested in coming should contact Honorable Austin Chukwukere on 080334-26069. Announcer, Honorable Austin Chukwukere. Also, the University of Jos Alumni Association wishes to remind all its members in the House of Representatives that the 2017 reunion and dinner, which is under the distinguished chairmanship of Chief Tony Momo, Chairman, University of Jos Governing Council, is coming up today, September 28, 2017. Time for the event is 6 p.m. and venue is Yaradua Center, Abuja. Come one, come all. The whip is making noise because he didn't have the honor of going to University of Jos.
We are now reaching you live from the floor of the House of Representatives, where members have reconvened for Thursday's plenary. Remember, you can also watch us live on NTA Parliament channel on channel 306 Star Time Bouquet. Well, from the other paper of today, 27 bills have been scheduled for first reading. Well, one of them is a bill that seeks to amend the National Open University of Nigeria Act of 2017. One of them as well is a bill on the Erosion Prevention and Control Commission bill. Well, that bill has, generated some kind of concerns over time. And then today, members of the House of Representatives will be passing that bill for first reading. A bill on the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Agency will also be coming up for first reading on the floor today. And then the Popular Whistleblowers Protection Bill will also be coming up for first reading on the floor of the House of Representatives. We'll also be having the Federal University of Maritime Studies, Oron, among the ones that will be coming for first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my honorable colleagues.
Point of order.
I have. What did you say? Please, I think I'm protected by the speaker, please.
Honorable Dambaramdu, who is protected, I take it as a slip of tongue. I take it as I didn't hear him, really. So he's protected.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a petition from one Hawa Umar, who is married to somebody from my constituency. She was involved in an accident sometime 2012. Her car was impounded by the police, and when the police were asked later on to produce the car after court has determined the case and hand over the car to her, it was later found out this accident happened in Abuja. It was later found out that the police have auctioned the car, and she's asking the House to look into the matter and help her get back her car, recover her car. With your permission, your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to lay this petition.
Please proceed and lay the petition. Honorable Nkiruka, or your church.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Kiruka Onyejocha. I represent the good people of Isukwatu Federal Constituency.
Please, silence, please.
I am from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this is a petition on behalf of Integrated Remediations Limited against Nigerian Oil Company Limited. I present this petition to this House. Mr. Speaker, this petition is by an indigenous company, Integrated Remediations Limited, and it's against Nigeria Oil Company Limited. It's calling on this honorable House to intervene and salvage Integrated Remediations Limited, who is the petitioner, from imminent bankruptcy due to acts of breach of contract, refusal to pay, and seizure of 2 waste rigs perpetrated by the Nigerian Nigeria Agip Oil Company Limited. Mr. Speaker, the petitioner installed customized waste management plants and rendered waste management services to Nigeria Agip Oil Company Limited at Brass since August 2007. Nigerian Agip Oil Company Limited has, however, refused to pay for the services rendered to her by the petitioner. And Mr. Speaker, they have also refused to release the waste management plants to the petitioner till date. As we speak, they are still in possession of those plants. The total financial obligation of Nigerian Agip Oil Company Limited due to these integrated services is $30,057,539.42 only. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, these unlawful acts by Nigeria Agip Oil Company Limited have plunged this petitioner at the verge of bankruptcy, as the petitioner has been unable to meet up her financial obligations to her foreign partners. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this petitioner is asking that this House intervene. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, may I proceed to lay this petition?
Please proceed and lay the petition. Honorable Bambose, the cross-border trader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Honorable Bambose Hotoyon Joseph. I represent Badagry Federal Constituency. The gateway, that is the only gateway to Nigeria. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the petition I have is from Inihebe Efyong Chamber, the Liberation House. The petition is concerned about land dispute. The petition against the flagrant disregard for the court order by the Nigerian Army in respect of the judgment in suit number FAC/CS/789/05 between Chief Abayomi Akerele versus Nigerian Army Post Exchange NAPEX Limited and National Inland Waterway Authority. That is the petition I'm presenting so that the House can rescue this man from the flagrant disregard of the court order given to Chief Akerele. May I proceed to lay the petition, sir?
Okay, please proceed and lay the petition. Honorable Ezinwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable Ezinwa Francis Onyewuchi. I represent the Owerri Federal Constituency of Imo State. Mr. Speaker, I have a petition from the good people of Owerri under the auspices of the Owerri Community Assembly and the Elders Forum of Owerri Main Market. Mr. Speaker, the petition is on the same subject matter, the illegal demolition of Owerri Main Market, also known as the Kuku Owerri. Mr. Speaker, they are informing this House that on the 26th of August, bulldozers, caterpillars, accompanied by heavily armed soldiers and police, militia and thugs, in a Gestapo-like manner, invaded the said market, forcibly evicted the traders, demolished the shops, destroyed wares worth billions of naira, in violation of a subsisting court order of the Owerri High Court. Mr. Speaker, on that day, soldiers, police, thugs fired live bullets on defenseless citizens who were trying to remove their wares from the rampaging forces. This led to the death of 3 persons, including the 10-year-old Somtochukwu Ibanusi. and several others who sustained bullet wounds. The people of Owerri believe, Mr. Speaker, that the governor of Imo State has usurped the functions of the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces by ordering soldiers under the command of Brigadier H.I. Bature to unleash this act of state terrorism on defenseless citizens. The people of Owerri have therefore approached this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, to seek justice for these grave and heinous crimes. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I shall proceed to lay this petition before the House.
Please proceed and lay the petition. Any more petitions, Honorable Deji?
Mr. Speaker, my name is Olusumbo Olubemi, Honorable Member representing Oluyole Federal Constituency of Oyo State. I have this petition from Mr. Johnson Oladimeji Ojo, a petition against Crusader Sterling Pension Limited and Nigeria Interbank Settlement System PLC for illegal and oppressive withholding of additional voluntary contribution gratuity of the said Mr. Johnson Oladimeji Ojo. With your kind permission, may I lay this petition on the floor?
Honorable Femi, proceed and lay the petition. Any more petitions? None. We are not there yet. All petitions referred to the Committee on Public Petitions. Honorable Dr. Achibo, your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Henry Achibong is my name. I represent the good people of Itu,
Order.
Federal Constituency.
Order, please. Honorable members, please take your seats.
Under Order 8, Rule 5, personal explanation. By the indulgence of the House and the leave of the Speaker, a member may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the House, but no controversial matter may be brought forward or may debate arise upon
Honorable Emmanuel, please resume your seat.
Shall be submitted in extenso.
Please,
Speaker,
Honorable Kaita,
to make his thought.
please.
Mr. Speaker, I seek to be permitted to give a personal explanation. I wish to inform this House that it's not every time that sometimes sad news will come. I want to tell this House that while we were on recess, I went and graduated from the University of Liverpool, MPH in Management of Health System. I think I need a little bit of commendation because in spite of the schedule, we still find time to read. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, you are highly commended. But unfortunately, we didn't know, so it's just now that they're giving us the information. Congratulations. Another point of order from Dr. M.S. Abdul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My point of order is Order 8, Rule 4 and 7, which I want to move concurrently by your leave and by the leave of the House, is on a motion for an urgent public importance. And standing on a dictum that a stitch in time saves 9. And the motion is on the need to stop the implementation of the so-called Burma Initiative by non-statutory committees, I remit same to Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, which is set up by Presidential Proclamation for proper mandatory execution. And I have two motions to move here that I seek the leave of the Speaker, I seek the leave of the House to take this motion, and also Rule 7 to suspend all our relevant rules so that we can take them and treat them concurrently and get it done today, because it's something that is about to happen, and I think we can use our Privilege and Powers Act to stop it so that injuries cannot be done further to both our rules of law and to our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move.
Honorable O.C. Prestige.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, our distinguished colleagues. I am Honorable Prestige O.C., member representing Aba North, Aba South Federal Constituency. I am from Abuja State, God's own state. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion, that this motion is urgent, that we should please entertain it. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor of the motion that the matter is urgent, say aye. Those against it, say nay. Ayes have it. Seconded to the second limb of the motion. From this row, I'll take from Honorable Lam, additional.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name remains Adida Lam Additional. I represent the very good people of Ibadan, Southeast and Northeast Federal Constituency. I'm from Oyo State. I rise to second the second leg of the motion as moved by the Honorable. Thank you very much.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Dr. MS, you can now take your motion.
Thank you, my most honorable Speaker, Yakubu Dogara, and my very esteemed colleagues. I stand here with a lot of sense of responsibility to move this motion of urgent public importance on the need to stop the implementation of a so-called initiative called the Burma Initiative in the Northeast by non-statutory committees, and remit same to Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, which was mandatorily set up by Presidential Proclamation for proper mandatory execution. Mr. Speaker, the House notes with dismay the plethora of complaints and rumblings in the main social media and the nicks and fabrics of our communities and societies, particularly in the Northeast and the North and all over, well-meaning Nigerians who are aware of this, regarding the alleged intended abnormal movement of appropriated Northeast Intervention Fund meant to be domiciled and utilized by the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative and that of the Consolidated Pool Account domiciled in the Office of Accountant General of the Federation. The House also notes that the above funds to be moved to a special account is meant to fund a pilot project called the Burma Initiative, BI. Number 3, the Burma Initiative, as conceived, is not meant to be handled by the statutory Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, PCNI, but by 2 non-statutory, non-place-specific committees floating between the Ministry of Budget and Planning and National Planning and the Presidency. Mr. Speaker, sir, already there was a move to tap onto our 48 billion naira, which is properly budgeted for, appropriated for, assented to, and is now the 2017 Act. 28 billion out of it, 18 billion which is meant for the PCNI account, and 10 billion from the consolidated pool account are not being moved through proper and approved regulated financial flow systems of the government. What I mean here, either through supplementary budget, through environment, or direct capital releases as enunciated by the 2017 Act. Mr. Speaker, the House is so worried that if the movement, in fact this illegal movement of funds is allowed to go through, it will lead to serious breaches of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the 2017 Appropriation Act, the financial regulations, the extant rules, and on all other rules and standard charters of service delivery of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On this end, Mr. Speaker, sir, I so move that the House look at this very, very carefully and urge and call the attention of Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General or President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, to graciously direct the immediate stoppage of all activities behind these pilot projects and stop the movement of these funds and restore law and order in the system. Secondly, this House has worked on something which is a little bit more permanent and more institutional, and we urge Mr. President to graciously assent to the Northeast Development Commission bill before him and to expedite action for immediate take-off of the agency for comprehensive institutional management of the Northeast redevelopment. I so move, Mr. Speaker, and I ask the leave of the House to debate robustly this and support this motion so that we can achieve this objective. A stitch in time saves 9. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move.
Honorable Francis, Honorable Bashir Babale, have you been formally moved to that position so that I know that that's your seat now?
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Francis Charles Udoyo is my name, member representing Korawasi, Bahrain, Eastern Ogolo Federal Constituency. I'm from Akwa Ibom. So I rise to second the motion and deeply moved by my brother and my colleague. I so second.
Okay, the motion has been seconded. Dr. MS, you may now lead the debate.
Sir, the body of the motion is self-explanatory. However, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, with all sense of responsibility, that in a situation where today, in Maiduguri alone, in one of the biggest IDP camps, we have an endemic outbreak of cholera with about 4,000 cases and 50 to 60 deaths, in a situation whereby the youth of Burma have been agitated to be moved to their natural environment for the past 1 year, and a lot of them are being incarcerated in prison detention camps because of their desperation. Mr. Speaker, in a situation where the Presidential Committee on the North Initiative, which is established by presidential proclamation, which is has a force of law, backed up by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as a transitory body set up by the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, to be the apex agency in coordinating all interventions in the Northeast region by the public and private sector, by national and international development partners and by all non-government organizations, faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, and so on, have not received a single kobo legally appropriated to it in the 2017 Appropriation Act. Not a single kobo. Sir, because of the palpable lack of funds, this august presidential agency cannot coordinate the myriad activities of the NGOs and all the other bodies. Particularly, they cannot control, they cannot monitor the self-acclaimed spendings on the emergency aspect of the rehabilitation, reintegration, and return programs, where millions of US dollars is melting away without monitoring, without targeting. Sir, where all the IDP camps are now turning into internally desperation camps, internally deprivation camps, internally despair camps, sir, a lot of frustration, a lot of inbuilt of energy is now about to explode. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I now submit that we are about to witnessing this flagrant disregard to the humanitarian situation and to total lack of sympathy, empathy, passion, compassion, or indeed an expropriation of simple humanity. Mr. Speaker, about 58.33% of the 48 billion appropriated is likely to move channels without recourse to the rule of law. That is what is bothering us here. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, sir, is about to be desecrated. So also the 2017 Appropriation Act and the fundamental financial regulations, Actons Rule, Standard Chartered Service Delivery, and of course the Procurement Act are all being bastardized if we allow this to go through. Mr. Speaker, sir, we should not allow this rule of law to be assassinated by our noses, on our footsteps. Sir, please, Honorable House, we are the true representatives of the people. Nigeria is a whole. We have just enacted a unity committee to unite, to forge, and look forward, not backward. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am praying that we use all our powers, constitutional, legislative powers and privilege act, and any other supervisory, oversight, whatever means, and so on, to not only rescue the ravaged Northeast, but fundamentally to restore rule of law all over Nigeria. As the last bastion of democracy, people's representatives, and the last beacon of hope for this nascent democracy, I once again pray that my prayers in the main motion should be looked at carefully, and probably some of our members I know have good ideas for better things that we can do, and I so submit, I so pray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Dr. Bode.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Dr. Bode Ayorinde. I represent Owo Federal Constituency. I'm from Ondo State. I rise, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, to commend and appreciate the mover of this motion. This is the National Assembly, a arm of it, and when laws are made, laws are meant to be obeyed. An Appropriation Act, those who are in the executive need to know that it is an act of the National Assembly, and therefore it has all the force of a law assented to by Mr. President. when a law is passed, it must be obeyed. The Appropriation Act, being a law, therefore requires to be implemented the way it has been approved. If there is any need to move funds from one envelope to another, there is a process, and that process must be strictly followed. Anything outside that recognized legal process, therefore, becomes an aberration, and it will amount to lawlessness. Our government of today, headed by the Mr. President, is a government that prides itself on anti-corruption, rule of law. I want to strongly believe that our highly respected president is not part of this illegality. This motion, therefore, is apt to bring it to the notice of our president that a very grave illegality is about to be committed and it should be stopped. And on this note, I want to strongly support this motion and appeal to our colleagues to pass it with the speed of light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my right honorable colleagues. My name is Abdurrahman Shuaibu. I represent Mubi North, Mubi South, and Maiha Federal Constituency. I'm from Adamawa State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to join my colleague in supporting this very important motion. It has again brought to the fore the problems we still have in the implementation of our budgets. When this budget was presented, most of us from the Northeast, we felt that it was even inadequate to take care of the enormous problems being faced in the Northeast. And the amount was very, very little. But despite being very little, up till now, the rainy season has gone, when farmers were supposed to have been supported to go back to their farms. The dry season will soon come in. No kobo has been released to this presidential committee on Northeast for them to start implementing this budget. And in this budget, it was specific for each item. Well, each item to be executed is specific in the budget. So I've seen no reason why somebody can sit down in his office, write a letter to a government agency, and do a vehement on his own without recourse to the National Assembly. So we should not, Mr. Speaker, allow this type of impunity to take place. We should, I believe we should even call those concerned to come here and explain why they should go about doing this type of thing. And we should, the federal government should, as a matter of urgency, release these funds to the Presidential Committee on Northeast so that they can start implementation of their projects. Because people are suffering. We don't want those people that have gone back to their homes to move back to the IDP camps. Because if we don't support them in their homes, if we don't support them to go back to their farms, if we don't support them to go back to their businesses, they will definitely, if they can get free food at the IDP camps, many people will go back to the IDP camps. We don't want that to happen, Mr. Speaker. So we should take this thing very serious, and it should be a warning to all government agencies. You cannot do a vehement on your own. If you want anything, any change to be done to the Appropriation Act, it should be returned to the National Assembly for whatever action that should be taken. So we should take this thing very seriously and also direct the federal government to, as a matter of urgency, release these funds meant for the PCNI to them so that they can start implementation of their 2017 budget. We have gone remaining just 3 months to the end of this 2017, and nothing has been done in the Northeast, except the NGOs that are working there, nothing from government, no project from government. Even the roads that were awarded, the budgetary provisions were not even enough to pay for the 15% advance. So nothing has been done in the Northeast from the federal government. So, Mr. Speaker, we should take this thing very serious. Thank you.
This Honorable Nkiruka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Kiruka Onyejoch. I represent the good people of Isukwatu Federal Constituency. I am from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, Honorable colleagues, I commend the mover of this motion for bringing this to limelight. Let me start by saying that any act or action that seems or tends to go against appropriation, as far as I'm concerned, is unlawful. And any attitude of any person that seems to take legislation or our constitution or to treat it with levity should be shunned. So I will condemn this act if it is true. Because for me, the issue of Northeast is very pathetic. And I found at a situation where people will see the things they should do and they won't do it, especially where it concerns life. So I'm speaking today as member of House of Representatives, and I'm speaking as a Nigerian. And I'm also speaking as a lawmaker, that anybody or group of persons who believe that we have appropriation bill and they will neglect it, begin to do what they want or what they think that is right, is an infraction. And such infraction should be punished. That is number one. Number two, sir, the allegations here are very weighty indeed. And I believe when you listen to him, it will look like something that you call for investigation. But assuming he has done all his investigations and all the facts all the issues presented to us are facts and they are true, of course we'll pass this motion, it becomes a resolution. But what happens if the executive or the players did not honor our resolution? So what do we do? It leads us to the norms of let them talk. Oh, it's just advisory. Oh, they are just talking. So I want to believe that this particular one should not just be about talking. It shouldn't be just about resolution. That if actually it's true that something must be done, and today is September, we have few months, and yet we are sitting down here and we've heard stories about death, about people being subjected into all kinds of inhuman treatment at those centers. So I believe that the leadership of this house should do the unusual. Maybe call the people that are involved to tell them, let them look at the laws. That the judiciary, of course, should help us to begin to bring people to book. And I keep saying it, that until people are punished, that until people pay for their sins, until people know that when they do something wrong, that they will be punished, they will not cease to be doing those things. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge that you use your good office to look at this issue very critical and to make sure that if these things that have been presented to us today are facts and are true, that something must be done. And anything that must be done has to be done very urgently, because time is going, people are dying, nobody cares, and yet we are sitting down here, we are going to appropriate next few months. And the ones that we have appropriated, people are not implementing. And I beg here to add, sir, that issues that concerns implementation should be taken seriously. If people have appropriation bill and they are not following it to the letter, they should know the consequences. If we need to move this country forward, we must think outside the box. We must begin to do things right. We have enough enabling laws to bring people to the right path, to do things that they're supposed to do very correctly. But once they don't do it and nothing happens, we don't do anything apart from what they will call, oh, it's advisory. I believe that we should begin to do something that will be taken seriously. Because if you have a child today, like few months' time, few days' time, we are going to celebrate 57. Any man who is 57 years is any man you call a man at 57, you must have seen some things that will make you to know that this person is a man. So at 57, if we are not obeying our laws, if we are not implementing our budget, if we are not doing things that should be taken, that we are serious and we want to move this nation forward, then we will better have a routine. So I believe that, Mr. Speaker, that your office will enable us to do this, because I know that we have passed many resolutions here. And month in, out, they don't do anything. So it's not an issue about committee. Please, Mr. Speaker, for once, use your office to make sure that these things does not happen the way they plan it to happen. I so submit.
Honorable Nuruddin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Akinwumi Nuruddin Olaiton, representing the good people of Ifako-Ijaye Federal Constituency, the State of Excellence, Lagos. I want to join my colleagues to support the motion that is on ground right now. Just about a week ago, it was reported in the media that the budget of 2018 will be presented in October to the National Assembly. And the position of Nigerians, majority of Nigerians, is that the executive is actually doing its job. The National Assembly is not considering the budget as at when due. But the budget of 2017 that has been passed, what is the level of compliance? What is the level of implementation? The motion that is moved now is specific, but we can generalize it to when we look at all the sectors where allocations have been made. What is the level of compliance? I read in some of the dailies that presently we have about 20% compliance of 2017 budget, and things are not moving. If you read the papers, if you listen to the media, most knocks go to members of the National Assembly, that the National Assembly members are actually not performing their roles as expected. But of course, we have done our duty by looking at all the sectors and allocating funds. It is left to the executives to actually implement this budget. And if budget is not implemented, how do you record growth in most of these sectors? I think it is important for us to actually let the world know, let Nigerians know that the National Assembly, as an arm of government, is doing its best to work on the economy. The government that is in place now is a government that is ready to work, and we should let them know that the budget that has been passed should be implemented so that Nigerians will see the gains of democracy. Nigerians are looking towards the National Assembly to provide this role, and we need to do it. And it is in this line that I support the motion as moved and as supported by some of my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Contributor Honorable Osai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished honorable colleagues, I remain Honorable Osai, Nicholas Osai. I represent local federal constituency of Mr. Speaker. I support the great motion moved by a very analytical mind. Mr. Speaker, the essence of my support is predicated upon a lot of fundamental weighty issues that have been raised by the proponent of this motion. Why do I say so, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues? He raised the issues of statutory issues, and he raised the issues of an ad hoc committee implementing a statutory passage of law that we have made, and that ought to be revised. Those are weighty issues. He raised issues of money appropriations to such a statutory organs that ought to function in line with the dictate of our Constitution, which has not been complied with. Mr. Speaker, these are weighty issues. Now, having a weighty issues, without looking into the detail of such weighty issues, we might not come out with a resolutions. Because if you come out with such resolution, you'll be acting based on impulse. It is on this ground, Mr. Speaker, that this motion calls for a proper investigation to unravel the issues. That is why the House creates committees. And that is why in Section 62, subsection 1 of our Constitution, mandate Mr. Speaker and Principal Officer and Selection Committee to constitute Committee of National Assembly to be able to unravel issues whereby the plenary cannot be able to unravel. It is on this ground, and I stand on that this motion, even the prayer are so beautiful, that we ought to have passed, but we have to unravel the issue. So at the end of the day, Section 36 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will be complied with of fair hearing for such constitutional authority that ought to appear. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleague, it is on this ground I support the motion, but call for an amendment of this motion so that a proper investigation should be conducted, and urgently, because Northeast people are suffering. It is on this ground I rest my case, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Buba Yakubu from the other row. That will be last contributor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Yusuf Buba Yakub. I represent Gombe Hong Federal Constituency from Adamawa State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this very important motion moved by my honorable colleague. Mr. Speaker, the Northeast people are in their need of urgent and immediate intervention. And that is why the PCNI was created by Mr. President. Mr. Speaker, the PCNI was created through a presidential fiat, that is Establishment Directive 2016, similar to how ministries are created. The President issued such directive in exercise of the powers vested on him by Sections 5(1) and Sections 130, subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Mr. Speaker, the mandate of this body is to coordinate activities of all interventions by government and private sector to the Northeast people. So, Mr. Speaker, I am aware that the PCNI is a statutory body that has presented its budget to this House, and that this budget has been appropriated. So it baffles me if any initiative will come up to move any money from
Honorable
this budget
members, please.
without violence by the National
Silence,
Assembly.
please.
So, Mr. Speaker, I call on this honorable House to stop the movement of these monies and make sure that things are done according to the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so that the end beneficiaries, that is the people of the Northeast, will benefit from this intervention. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, amendments, Honorable Chika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shiroro Rapimuya Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Niger State. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, my amendment to this motion is that the House should set up an ad hoc committee to investigate this allegation and report within the speed of light of 2 weeks. I repeat, Mr. Speaker, My amendment is that the House should set up another committee to investigate this allegation and report back to the House within 2 weeks. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder? Honorable Yao Galadima Zachary.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, I remain Zakaria Muhammad Galadima, member representing the people of Bede Jakusko. I am from Yobe State. Mr. Speaker, I stand to second the amendment as ably moved by or amended by my colleague, Honorable Chika. I so second. Thank you.
Those in favor of the amendment say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Next amendment is from Honorable Ezekiel Adaji. Oh, your amendment has already been knocked out, even before it is moved. By the first amendment we took, so that takes care of your own amendment. I'll put a question. Those in favor of the motion as amended say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable members, the first business of the day is presentation of 27 bills, and I invite the clerk to read their short titles.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, Federal Capital Territory Statutory Appropriation Bill 2017, first reading. National Research and Innovation Council Bill 2017, first reading. National Open University of Nigeria Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Erosion Prevention and Control Commission Bill 2017, first reading. Institute of Chartered Biochemists and Molecular Biochemists of Nigeria Bill 2017, first reading. Nigerian Financial Intelligence Agency Bill 2017, first reading. Whistleblower Protection Bill 2017, first reading. Federal University of Maritime Studies Oron Bill 2017, first reading. Administration of Criminal Justice Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Companies and Allied Matters Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Evidence Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Education National Minimum Standards and Establishment of Institutions Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Electric Power Sector Reform Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. External Trade Letters of Credit Control Act Repeal Bill 2017, first reading. Federal Capital Territory Political and Administrative Structure Bill 2017, first reading. Legal Education and Legal Practitioners Consolidation, etc. Bill 2017, first reading. Nigerian Industrial Development Bank Guarantee Act Repeal Bill 2017, first reading. Family Economic Advancement Program Establishment, etc. Act Repeal Bill 2017, first reading. Orthopedic Hospital Management Board Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Regional Center for Oral Health Research and Training Initiatives Establishment Bill, ETC Bill 2017, first reading. Family Support Trust Fund Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading. Federal Government Staff Housing Board Act Repeal Bill 2017, first reading. Federal University Burning Kebbi Bill 2017, first reading. Federal University Gashua Bill 2017, first reading. Federal University Gusau Bill 2017, first reading. Nigerian College of Aviation Technology Act Amendment Bill 2017, first reading.
Honorable colleagues, the second business of the day is presentation of report of the Committee on Science and Technology on the bill for an act to establish the National Biotechnology Development Agency and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Benilar Honorable members will recall the bill was referred to the committee on Thursday, 25th February 2016. The report is ready for presentation, and Honorable Benny Lar is now invited to present it.
Mr. Speaker, my name is Benny La. I represent Plantain North and South, Federal Constituency of Plateau State. Mr. Speaker, may I move that the House do receive the report on the bill for an act to establish the National Biotechnology Development Agency and for related matters. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Betty Apiefi. Today is an affirmative day. I didn't see Betty there, so maybe she shouldn't second. Honorable Princess. She came later? Okay, I hope that's not Wayo. Honorable Betty.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Betty Apiapi. I represent Abuja, Ojo, Lahoda East Federal Constituency. I rise to support the motion as moved by Honorable Benny La, so support. Also second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Benny, please proceed and lay the report. First order of the day, honorable colleagues, commencement of debate on the general principles of Bill for an Act to repeal the National Housing Fund Act, Chapter N45, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and reenact the National Housing Fund and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Ahmed Baba Keita. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 20th July 2017, and I invite Honorable Keita to move the bill be now read second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Ahmed Baba Keita. I rise to move for the second reading of the bill for an act to repeal the National Housing Fund Act, CAP, N45 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 and reenact the National Housing Fund and for related matters. I so move.
Honorable Jimo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Jiba Abdurrahim Olajide. I represent Lagos Mainland Federal Constituency, Lagos State. I stand to second the motion as moved by Honorable Lawa Keita. Thank you.
Honorable Keita, you may now lead the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Ahmed Baba Keita, representing Henche Kusade Ngawa of Katsina State. Mr. Speaker, just like you rightly said, the bill has gone for first reading and it's coming for second reading. And the aim and objective of this bill is to reenact and bring the Act in conformity with the present-day realities so as to have more housing in Nigeria. Right, so, Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues, I rise to lead the debate for the second reading of this all-important bill to ignite a legislative initiative to reform the housing sector in Nigeria. This aim seeks to expand the sources of funding for the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and position the bank for effective, affordable and sustainable housing delivery in Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, the provision of affordable housing for the citizenry has remained the basic need of every family and the focus of every successive government in Nigeria. This is because housing development is vital economic activity that provides substantial employment opportunities and a key parameter for measuring the standard of living and quality of life in any society. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 99 as amended, has also laid credence to this basic need in Section 16, which clearly said that the state should direct its policies towards ensuring that suitable and adequate shelter is provided for all citizens. My dear colleagues, the present administration, in line with the APC manifesto of our great party, has severally pledged to create an additional middle class of at least 4 million new homeowners by the year 2019 by enacting national mortgage single-digit interest rate for purchase of owner-occupier houses, as well as review the collateral qualification to make funding for home ownership easier. With a 15 to 30-year mortgage term, this will equally help our banking system migrate from short-term to long-term perspective of this role in sustaining the economy. My dear honorable colleagues, this lofty dream ambition to provide affordable housing for all Nigerians cannot be achieved and sustained without the provision of appropriate legislative and legal framework that is up to date with the present-day realities. This is only achievable through the review of the existing law and legislation governing the housing delivery in the country. And one such key legislation is the National Housing Fund, which stipulates sources of funding, investment guidelines, delivery and management mechanism of property development and housing in Nigeria. The need to repeal this and reenact the law to remove obvious inadequacies, expand the sources of funding, and upgrade offenses and penalties therein in the essence of this exercise. Objective of the bill. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, the bill objectives seek to repeal the National Housing Fund Act laws for the Federation of Nigeria and enact the National Housing Fund to provide for additional sources of funding, provide steeper fines and penalties to ensure effective, adequate, and sustainability affordable housing delivery in Nigeria. Section 3D of the bill has accordingly made provision for investment in the fund for pension fund administrators. This is a remarkable attempt to utilize huge sums of collected sums by the National Pension Commission and has been lying idle with pension funds administrators over the years to be plugged into the housing sector. The bill, therefore, in Section 5 has adequately provided the modalities and guidelines to banks, insurance companies, and pension fund administrators to make a contribution to the fund through the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Section 9, 10, and 11 of the repeal and enactment bill clearly stipulate the duties of the Central Bank of Nigeria and National Insurance Commission and National Pension Commission to collect from banks, insurance companies, and pension fund administrators, respectively, at the end of each quarter, the required percentage of their contribution and pay same to the Federal Mortgage Bank for investment in the fund. The bill has therefore provided stringent conditionality and penalty on failure to make such contribution in the case of commercial and merchant banks. Section 9(3) states that failure by any commercial bank or merchant bank to pay to the bank any amount due under subsection 1 of this section shall be regarded as contravention of the bill and shall constitute one of the grounds for which the Central Bank of Nigeria may cancel the registration of any commercial or merchant bank. So also the same penalty applies to the insurance and the same penalty applies to insurance companies. Section 21, 22, and 23 of the bill adequately provides stiffer fines and penalties to come in consonance with the present-day realities and ensure effective, adequate, and sustainable housing delivery in Nigeria. Significance of the bill. My dear colleagues, the significance of the bill lies in the fact that it has the remedy for the current situation where contribution into the housing fund from critical stakeholders as provided by law are not collected or made as at when due, thereby starving the Federal Mortgage Bank to carry out its statutory function. With the stringent penalties provided in this bill and expanded additional sources of funding, the housing sector will be adequately stimulated to contribute to the growth of our national economy. Secondly, the bill, when passed, will provide the enabling law and legal legislative framework needed to reform the housing sector in Nigeria by making available the huge financial capital to the development of the national housing infrastructure to offset the huge housing deficit. Thirdly, the purpose of this bill is an assurance to Nigerians that the 8th House of Representatives and indeed the National Assembly is keeping pace with its mandate and legislative agenda to pass and review laws that have direct bearing on the populace and their welfare. Lastly, this bill, when passed, will activate the full potential, capacity, and primary objective of the fund, which includes to facilitate the mobilization of the fund for the provision of houses for Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, I so second, I so move, and I urge my colleagues to support the second reading.
Are you seconding or moving? Honorable Dr. MS.
Sir, I think the leverage of the distance, I want to contribute something into the debate, so maybe somebody can second, and you give me just 2 minutes to contribute.
Okay, I was recognizing you because I know that that is your field. Honorable Jones.
Mr. Speaker, my dear honorable colleagues, Honorable Sir Jones Chukwudi Onyerere, representing the largest federal constituency in the country, Nkwere Su, Nwangele Njaba Federal Constituency, Imo State. Mr. Speaker, my dear honorable colleagues, let me salute my brother, Honorable Keita, for bringing up this bill. Indeed, I'm excited about this bill to the very extent that this bill will guarantee shelter for all. And not only will it guarantee shelter for all, Mr. Speaker, this bill will help to reduce the huge housing gap that we have in Nigeria. Beyond all that, the bill would also, like he rightly posited, guarantee stiffer penalties in case of infraction, which ultimately will also guarantee full implementation and observance of the extant provisions of this bill. But, Mr. Speaker, I have a very little challenge which I believe that would interest my honorable colleagues. As part of the stiffer penalties as spelled out by my brother, Honorable Keita, he had indicated, especially in section 9.3 of the proposed bill, that in case of infraction, if there's any commercial bank that doesn't pay into the fund, that the Central Bank of Nigeria will be mandated to withdraw the license. Mr. Speaker, let me bring to our attention that this provision is in outright conflict with the provisions of the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act, is in outright conflict with the provision establishing the Central Bank of Nigeria, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria Act 1991. Mr. Speaker, the danger of this provision is that the life of any commercial bank is guaranteed by the license granted to them. If you withdraw the license of any of these deposit money banks, that is the end of the bank, Mr. Speaker. What that means is that there will be systemic failure. All the depositors, 1,000,001 of them, will lose their deposits instantly. It is dangerous, Mr. Speaker. The second point is this. Mr. Speaker, the Pension Act also guarantees that these funds are not free with respect to the pension fund. These are funds that guarantee the life, the sustenance of all our retirees, that guarantees their welfare XYZ. Mr. Speaker, if you also withdraw the license of pension fund administrators, that means you are closing down the PFA. And if you do that, what happens with the contributions that they have made all in the life of their service to this great nation? Mr. Speaker, by moral suasion, This, I would plead with my colleague, my lovely brother, to have a second look at this bill. I would have been tempted to say, let this bill pass through the second reading. But the danger also is this. Members of my committee might not, by reasons of oversight, be available on the day of public hearing. They might also not be available when this thing comes back to us in the committee of the whole, assuming that in the public hearing they overlook these extra provisions as proposed by this bill. And we pass this bill erroneously. So, by moral suasion, my brother, please, if you will withdraw this bill, have a second look at these provisions that I've pointed out and see whether you can redraft it, because it's in conflict with existing acts as moved by this Honorable House. By moral suasion, I still insist. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to lend my voice to... My name is Honorable Dennis Namode Abu. I represent Udenu Igwezendo Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I'm from Enugu State. Needless to re-emphasize the point that this is a most crucial bill for us to consider in this House. The reason is that the housing provision in Nigeria is grossly inadequate, leaving a large housing deficit in the country. A look at how the situation stands now reveals that a sustainable mortgage funding arrangement is prerequisite for an effective housing scheme in Nigeria. The current funding arrangement is grossly inadequate, and the provisions of existing acts in this regard regarding funding have only been observed in breach. In other words, provisions in that act have not been complied with by relevant stakeholders. The intervention being proposed by this bill is therefore absolutely necessary and should be supported by this Honorable House as a House responsive to the needs of the Nigerian people. It is obvious that the provisions of the amended bill with regards to additional funding is very crucial to any attempt to boost housing schemes in Nigeria. However, I'd like to draw the attention of the sponsor of this bill to certain things that need to be looked into very critically. I have gone through the brief on the bill, Mr. Speaker, and one, the extant bill, the existing bill that the mover seeks to repeal has not been attached to the brief. In other words, we don't have a clear idea about what the provisions, existing provisions for now are. What are the new sources of funding being introduced by this bill? And how much is being required from the relevant stakeholders to contribute to the bill, so that we'll then be able to better assess whether this is going to be too much of a pressure on the financial system. What were the contributions in the extant bill which is being repealed? Mr. Speaker, I think that these things are very necessary for us to do very reasonable contributions to the consideration of this particular bill. But overall, Mr. Speaker, we need more housing in Nigeria. Housing development in Nigeria, Mr. Speaker, you know, will stimulate the economy. It will increase purchasing power. It will help to consolidate the position of this economy and bring us firmly out of recession. If we try to implement any very strong arrangement in housing scheme, it will help to move money to the hands of more Nigerians and provide needed accommodation and residence for Nigerian people.
So I would like to support this bill, but I believe that at the public hearing stage, Mr. Speaker, a lot of attention needs to be given to the bill so that it can achieve the full effect. Furthermore, by injecting the needed funds into the critical housing development sector, Mr. Speaker, purchasing power will be stimulated, the economy will be reflated, and the recent exit from recession will be consolidated while the economy is set on the path of sustainable growth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute.
Honorable Gaza.
Right, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Gaza Jonathan Befi, and I represent the people of Karu, Kefi, Kokona Federal Constituency of Nasarawa State. Indeed, I would love to appreciate the effort by my brother, Honorable Keita, for this bill. And why? Because as we know, the country right now is in a state of emergency when it comes to housing, where you have over a 17 million housing deficit with regards to affordable and houses that can be called adequate to live in. Now, having explained this bill, may I be quick to say that the term of loans with regards to the National Housing Fund has not been too much of a challenge. We have had long-term loans. However, one thing that this bill strives to address, which is of crucial importance, is the fact that due to the high cost of infrastructure involved in providing housing, there is need to be able to free up funds from other sources. For instance, in South Africa, I know for a fact that their pension fund is greatly used to finance housing, and this has gone a long way to bring about succor in that sector. Now, owing to the huge amount of funds that are tied in our pension funds, it is of great importance that we find a way of these funds being channeled into housing. It is one thing that cannot be overemphasized. However, two aspects that I believe we can equally strengthen this bill with that has been a problem with regards to mortgage in the past is the issue of foreclosure laws, among other things, when these loans are given out, to be able to recuperate them. So I believe if this bill is allowed to pass to committee stage, we would be able to sit down at that level and do the necessary panel-beating, reforming, and intellectual work that is needed to put into it to make it a document that will indeed stand the test of time. May I once again commend the movers and the various speakers that have spoken before me. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable MS, I think we'll round up here because of time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Honorable Dr. Mohammed Sani Abdul Al-Khali, Rikiri Federal Constituency from Bauchi State. Sir, I'm lending my voice for the second reading of this very important bill for a few reasons. Sir, we have huge funds locked in the pension fund sector of our economy, which are not being utilized. And the world over, the practice is that because of their long gestation period in tapping, it can only go for infrastructure development. And we know housing is the basic infrastructure for human existence. And that's why if we unlock this sector, it gives us huge funds that will go for long. Anybody who will want to build a house, who will want to borrow for a minimum of 10, 15, 20 years to pay. That's the practice. Now we don't have long-term funds. What this thing is going to do is going to give us long-term funds. However, Mr. Speaker, there are other sources of funds. We are wasting a lot of money in the housing sector, particularly in the Ministry of Works, Power and Housing. They have about 3 or 4 housing programs. which billions and billions of naira are being spent quietly and nobody is tapping into it. I think that one should be looked at the committee and at the report level so that we mop it up into this particular bill. That is the Presidential Housing Initiative. 2016, we have put almost 35 billion. This year, about 22 billion. That is just one. And no result, direct housing construction. I don't think that is the answer. Two, they have what called the FISH. That is the Federal Housing Initiative for staff, senior staff in the federal government. A lot of money is going into that. And very few people, 20, 30, are tapping into it. Then we have what you call the prototype housing, also domiciled in the Ministry of Housing. All these things are big-time money. I think, Mr. Proponent of this bill, my chairman, you should look into that. Secondly, there is another what we call cross-subsidy in housing delivery. We have to unleash the land also. In South Africa, they have created what they call the land bank. And it is open to from single citizen to highest corporate entity, whether in public or private sector. If you are going to develop a housing, you can go into that and tap by regions, by cities, by villages. They create areas where they have management, they have system of tapping. Once you are rooted into it, then you are also married to a mortgage institution where you can borrow and develop, and you are monitored, and your system of payment. And it's also linked to employment.
It's at this point that we'll round off today's live broadcast of the plenary of House of Representatives. So far, the House has received 5 petitions and then 27 bills were passed for first reading. The House has also resolved to investigate a motion that came on the matter of urgent public importance, alleging that the presidential initiative on Northeast Fund is there's a plan to misappropriate such fund. The mover of that motion alleged that that fund is planned to use to implement the Bama initiative. And then the House eventually now resolved to investigate that allegation. And then at the moment, the House is considering a bill that seeks to repeal the National Housing Fund. Well, as I'm talking to you, the bill is still being considered. But at the end of the day, we will know what the members have resolved to that effect. And it's on that note that we'll round off today's edition of the live broadcast. And on behalf of my crew, the production crew, we say enjoy the rest of your day as we take you back to our studios for the continuation of the scheduled program for the day. I am Ignatius Nkwo. Bye for now.
Our programs are getting better and fresher. And